You're listening to the Tao of Indifference, sex, dating, and relationship advice for an indifferent world. For more advice and tips, check out taoofindifference.com or follow us on Twitter at indifferent_D.
What's up, listeners? This is Demetrius. It's been a very long time, but of course, you're listening to the Tao of Indifference, and I am Indifferent D. Today's topic is building dating confidence. I'm also writing this as a full article, so about 1,000 words. I'm not even done yet. I'm just going to go off the top. You're going to get all my knowledge, unscripted, right into your ears. But first, I just want to address my long absence from the podcast. I switched jobs. I have a new day job. And with that new day job came the loss of sort of my quote-unquote recording studio. My old job, I had pretty free access to meeting rooms after hours and off hours. So it was a lot easier to sit in a room in silence and record a podcast. Things are a little different now. I'm recording in my apartment. And luckily this is not geotagged, so no one can stalk me. With that said, I'm probably be back to podcasting once a week, in between the writing and also the YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed already, and if you're listening, you probably should be subscribed to my YouTube page, because I not only post my podcasts in video form, I also have a new series. Well, it's not as new anymore, but it's a series where I get ladies to answer dating questions. Sometimes it's a compilation of singular question for multiple women or a couple questions for one girl, and it's called Ladies On. It's a separate playlist on my YouTube channel. Of course, the YouTube channel, like everything else, is Tao of Indifference. The playlist is called Ladies On, and it's great. Getting a lot of views. Looks like people are at least watching it. So go ahead, subscribe, like, comment. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you'd like to see some women address. So, with that out of the way, thanks for listening, and let's get into building dating confidence. So, I've said this a lot, and I'll just repeat it for you guys, but the key to dating success really has less to do with how you look and more to do with projecting confidence. I don't know if I've ever said it directly that way. I may have said you need to smile more, positive body language, all those kind of things, when really it comes down to the more confident you are, the more attractive you are. And I'm going to link to it, but there's this great quote I'm going to read to you. Sorry, I said I wasn't going to read notes, but read notes. So this is from a study that I linked to, and you can go check it out. But now I'm reading the quote. Harder characterized the correlation between appearance and global self-worth throughout life as staggeringly high, ranging between 0.7 and 0.8. Langlois, et al., found a much more modest relationship, but attractiveness was still positively related to observed self-confidence and self-esteem in children, and self-reported self-confidence and self-esteem, competence, and mental health in adults. In an experimental study, Mobius and Rosenblatt found that attractiveness was positively related to confidence in one's abilities. So, studies show that being confident makes you more attractive, both to others and to yourself, and just more competent in life. So, most people have a confidence problem, and I'm going to tell you how to improve upon that. And I broke it into two separate sections, and you guys probably know how much I love making lists and breaking it down and all that. So, building dating confidence comes down to PR, and not public relations, but practice and rethinking. And what I mean by that is there are things that you need to practice, and there's things that you need to rethink. The things you need to practice, and I'll break down each one, are smiling, making eye contact, conversation, being uncomfortable, taking rejection, and those are the 5. The things that you need to rethink are your own self-awareness, your image projection, your passive attraction, what a good date is, and the Pareto principle. So let's get into the practice section. I will try to keep it as simple as possible. So, you need to practice smiling. That's pretty much self-explanatory. Smile more. Smile at people. Be unafraid to smile at people. Connect that with the eye contact. Be unafraid to look people in the eye. Make eye contact. If you're someone who is unable to make eye contact because of a pre-existing condition, autism comes to mind. Perfectly understandable. But if you are someone who is not autistic and making eye contact just makes you uncomfortable, fight against it. Make sure that you're making eye contact with people, especially people that you're attracted to. Making eye contact is how humans connect with other humans. We don't really smell people and then determine if we like them or not. It's usually based on their face and the eye contact and the face that they are making. Simple, right? Conversation. What you want to do is practice having conversations with people, whether you're friends or strangers. And what I mean by that is you should be able to have a conversation with a stranger and have a conversation with your friends. And I'll give you a great example. Pretty sure if you're listening, you've seen a talk show ever in your life. And if you ever notice, and if you ever watch more than one talk show where the same person appears on it, let's say an actor is promoting a movie, like a Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt's promoting a movie. He's obviously going to go to as many talk shows as possible to get the word out that he's awesome in Guardians of the Galaxy. Generally, the talk show host has maybe not a list of questions so much as some general conversation topics. And the talk show guest has sort of canned answers to those questions. Now, most conversations that happen outside of talk shows can follow the same lines of, hey, what's your name? How are you? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? Pretty much the same things are discussed over and over with strangers. What you need to be able to do is answer those questions and know what those answers are off the top of your head. People often throw curveballs at you, and that's fine, but if you can just go back into your memory and just pick up I'm using your brain as sort of, think of your brain as a file cabinet. And if you can go to the file that has, frequently asked questions, and you pull out the piece of paper in your brain and say, this is what I do for a living, this is my interest, this is how I know this person, etc. and so forth, it makes having conversations with strangers a lot easier. When you get to the questions that you haven't prepared for, that's fine. You can say, oh, haven't answered that question before. No one's ever asked me that. And then you just answer. But having those pre-built answers in your brain ready to go, and where your brain is basically just using memory to answer a question, helps you out a ton. It's something that I practice on and try to use so that when I'm in a situation where I don't know anyone, it's really, I can get them to ask me these questions by asking them the same sort of questions. With that said, you should also practice building those questions out for yourself, for your own initiation of a conversation. So what that means is the questions that everyone asks, you should be able to ask those questions. You might be one of those people who says, oh, I hate small talk. And it's okay to hate small talk. But if you're meeting someone for the first time, you should probably get their name. Although where you're from, what do you do for a living, maybe isn't as important to you. But get some general questions out of the way and have those pre-built. When you meet someone new, you don't ask them how many marbles can fit into a pint glass. Those are questions that just make you seem everything seems contrived when you walk in and don't introduce yourself and don't ask some basic small talk questions. You can steer a conversation toward more serious subjects, but you always have to get the small talk out of the way. It just is how you get through a conversation. And I'm linking to it. There's this great video of Vin Diesel, noted thespian, where he was promoting the movie Find Me Guilty, where he plays a mobster, and and Sidney Lumet is directing him, and he tells the same story. He tells the same story to, I think, something like 20 different talk show hosts because they ask him the same questions. They asked him about his weight gain. and he has a canned answer, and they ask him about working with Sidney Lumet and all these things. And, it looks really terrible, but the thing is that you aren't on TV when you're talking to strangers in a party. And if they've never met you before, they've never heard these stories. So it's a great way, especially if you're really bad at conversation, to just sort of prepare for it. I know I'm asking you to prepare, and yes, it is hard work. I always say this, it's hard work, but it's worth it. Which leads into working on being in an uncomfortable situation. Many people, myself included, have been in an uncomfortable situation and avoided it, or heard about a potential uncomfortable situation in a social setting, and avoided it because it's so uncomfortable. And what I'm saying to you is you want to practice being uncomfortable. If you get invited to something in the future, or now, immediately after listening to this, your friend texts you and says, "Hey, I'm going to a party. I don't know anyone there. Do you want to come with me?" And you're thinking, this sounds terrible. It's going to be so uncomfortable. It's going to be so awkward. Go. Unless the party is legitimately dangerous. Like, if you feel that you will be in danger, obviously don't go. If you feel that you will learn and be uncomfortable and be put in a situation and have a bad time, go. Have a bad time. Who gets hurt from having a bad time? You wasted a night. So what? Going out and having a bad time is much better than staying in and doing nothing and not saying words for 8 hours because you were on a weird House of Cards marathon. Practice being uncomfortable. It will help you build essentially social muscles, quote unquote. You want to build up social muscles because they help you build sort of social muscle memory. I did air quotes on all those, so it's not a real thing. But you want to be able to be uncomfortable in a situation and then learn tricks that help you get comfortable. That sort of is one of those. That's where practicing talking, where you're meeting strangers, it helps you build a social muscle, quote. And you want to build those social muscles so when you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can power through it and you can say, "Oh, well, I remember when I was in a really uncomfortable situation before. This is how I got out of it." And finally, you want to practice taking rejection. I've covered this before on all the benefits of being rejected. So, you can easily practice being rejected if you are dating online because you are in a very unthreatening place to be rejected. Asking out your friend's friend, maybe it might be very uncomfortable, especially if you have to hang around that person again. But asking someone out online and having them reject you is fine. It's actually a great way to practice. I think that's the place that I've been rejected the most. There's nothing, I can't think of any place that I've been rejected more than when I was dating online. You just get rejected so much that you become really used to it. And you get rejected for the most arbitrary reasons or legitimate reasons or really offensive reasons, but it helps you build a really thick skin. Rejection will help you build a really thick skin. And a lot of people aren't used to being rejected. So practice. You can figure out your own way to practice, but online dating and asking people out will really help you build rejection. Practice being rejected. I don't think you can build rejection, but I can check facts. If you're someone who's already being rejected or any of the other 5, you already have a ton of practice in, skip it, but it's worth a shot. Keep doing it. These are the things that I did when I was trying to build dating confidence, and it worked out for me. So let's go to rethink. I want you to really legitimately rethink how you approach everything about your life. Not really, but let's start with your self-awareness. So your self-awareness and being aware of you is something that you control. And again, self-esteem, self-worth, self. It's all about you. So what I mean when I say that you should rethink your self-awareness, let's just be honest here. There's a very limited window of people that want to date you. And what I mean by that is not the number of people, because again, there's so many people. Wherever you live, chances are if you don't live in a city, you could go to a major city and probably meet somebody who'd be interested in you. If you live you're isolated. If you live in Antarctica, you're out of luck. But if you're like most people listening, you probably live in a city or near a city. So you are near someone who's attracted to you. But what I mean is that it's very limited because there are some factors that you will never be able to control. For example, your height. You're probably done growing vertically anyway. So you can't control that. You also can't control how you were perceived, what race you're perceived as, or your ethnicity. Things like that. Your hair color, your eye color, the fact that you have a scar on your eyebrow, on your brow line, or whatever. That's me. Those are all things. I do have a scar on my brow line. There's some things that are sort of in your control, but sort of not. If you're an engineer and you make X amount of dollars, and in your career path you can only make X amount of dollars, it's in your control. You can change career paths, but there's only so much you can do. If you're a doctor, if you change careers after you've been a doctor for 20 years, there's to a point you can control some of these factors, like your job, your degree, but they take a lot more time. And there's some stuff that you can control and you can change if you want to change, you cannot. But what I want to just get across is that you need to rethink your own self-awareness. You need to know what you are. And for me, I'm a tall, mixed ethnicity guy who works in healthcare. So I'm not a white guy. I'm not blonde. I'm not blue-eyed. I'm not a lawyer or a doctor. I know what I am. Now, you also need to be aware of some things that you are not. Your body really doesn't change. Your body isn't the thing that's going to hold you back from dating outside of some extreme cases, or if you're undergoing physical changes to match, if you're doing a gender reassignment, things like that. Yes. What I'm saying is that there's certain stuff you can control, certain things you cannot control, and what it comes down to is no matter how attractive you think you are, you shouldn't let that hold you back. And you should really, really know that your attractiveness isn't everything, but it also will, well, not your attractiveness, sorry. How you look isn't everything, but there are people who will never date you based on how you look. Now, you can approach that from a very positive outlook by saying, well, this is who I am. I'm the best version of me. I've made improvements to myself, but this is who I am. This is how I look. This is what I am. This is the life that I live. People aren't going to be attracted to that, but people also will. You can do it negatively and just say, I'm unattractive to the people that I'm attracted to. You always have to know that there are people who are not going to be attracted to you, and there are people that are going to be attracted to you based on just how you look. So really rethink that. And again, I'm not trying to shame anyone based on their body, but it is just a lot easier to date a model if you look like a model. It just is what it is. And that's not to say that there aren't exceptions, but there are, of course, exceptions. So you should just be aware of that, but also understand that there are guys who do not look like models who date models, and vice versa. And there are girls who don't look like models and they date male models. And just be aware of who you are, know your limitations, but also know that the limitations aren't solely based on how you look. I know it's very, new agey, but your looks aren't everything, but they can be everything to some people. So just be aware of that and don't get hung up on it because your looks aren't what makes you you, but to some people, they won't be attracted to you because of how you look. But it's not a knock on you, and also it shouldn't prevent you from pursuing people. So, continuing with the appearance, you also need to be aware of the image projection, what you give off in a less touchy-feely way. So, if you are a guy who looks sort of schlubby, you look not kempt, I don't know what the opposite of unkempt. There we go. I was going to say the opposite of well kept. Look unkempt. You look like you maybe smell. You know, I think I can say that, right? No one's going to be offended if I say someone looks like they smell. So yeah, if you look unkempt, you look unhygienic, chances are people are going to pick up on how you appear, no matter how clean you are or how much care you give to other parts of your body. That sounded weird. It generally made me laugh. Point being, how you look is one thing, and also the image you give off is another thing. If you're a guy who wears jeans and t-shirts all the time, chances are the people that are going to be pulled into that, I'll get to that later. But point being, you should rethink the image that you give off, and if you are not happy with it, you should change it. And what I mean by that is, if you give off a vibe of schlubby, and you find that you're attracting people who are schlubby, or people just assume you're schlubby and you're not, just rethink that and see what you can do, and maybe make some changes, or maybe not. Depends on you. And going again into the superficial stuff, the passive attraction. So, how you look, your self-awareness, and your image projection, and now your passive attraction. Your passive attraction is who you attract when you're not purposely changing yourself or doing anything in particular that's going to be attracting people. So, whose type are you, essentially? You know how when you meet girls and they say, oh man, I always attract X type of guy. That's their passive attraction. So what type of people do you attract? For me, it's generally it's people who are sort of clean cut and professional. And again, I'm aware of my passive attraction. Most people aren't aware that I have tattoos. So a lot of times I would attract girls who are very clean cut and conservative leaning and very much, white collary. And I look that way and I give off that sort of vibe, but I also have tattoos and, I'm really into weird stuff. There's some stuff that's not mainstream about me. I have a dating blog and a podcast, but I was always aware of my passive attraction, and people would often try to set me up with girls who sort of looked the way I looked, but that wasn't necessarily my thing, or it was, but you always have to be aware of your passive attraction. If you're 6'2", like me, you generally passively attract taller women, shorter women as well. But if you're 5'1" and you're a guy, you're probably passively attracting, possibly passively attracting. I gotta stop writing these terrible long words that I have to read. You're probably passively attracting shorter women. If you're a bigger person, you're probably passively attracting bigger people, etc., etc. So rethink that and just keep in mind, I'm aware of what I am aware of the image I project, and I'm aware of the people that I passively attract. Now, when you do that, you get to the point where you say, well, now I'm combining these three, and this is a sort of hidden one. So when I go through my self-awareness and rethink it, my image projection, and I rethink that, and my passive attraction and rethink that, I get to the point where I say, well, with all these things, am I attracting the people I want to attract? And you rethink that. Well, if I am, change nothing. Cool. This is exactly the type of person that I want to attract. If I'm not attracting the type of people I want to attract, I rethink what I'm doing, how I look, how I dress, all these things, what sort of activities I'm involved in. If I'm a reader and I'm not attracting people who read, maybe I join a book club, things like that. So what you want to do when you get those three is say, well, is this what I want? Is this what I'm pulling in through these three things? Is this what I want? If it's yes, no change is necessary. If it's no, reevaluate, maybe make some changes that are superficial, maybe make some changes that are not superficial, rethink if this is actually a good match for you. You might want a certain thing, but maybe you realize that it's sort of not what you really need. When I was 21, I wanted to date weird gothy punk rock girls, and not that there was anything wrong with that, but now at 29, it's not really my thing. And it was purely based on the aesthetic. It was like, well, I really want to date these girls because they look really good. But now, as an adult, I'm like, I'd really like to date this type of girl. If you are attracted to something that is not, or a type of person who is not attracted to you should rethink why you're actually attracted to them. If you're someone who is, now, of course, there's certain things that you can't change. If you're someone who's not that smart, then there's nothing wrong with that. And you really, really are into smart people. Like, you love readers. You love these people who can just go, like, intellectually, just go off the deep end and talk about, the political policies of post-war Croatia or, whatever. That's something that maybe isn't so superficial, but you need to understand why you're attracted to certain people or a certain type. Now, if you rethink that in total and you figure out that maybe you aren't that attracted to this type, or maybe it's not that important the reason you're attracted, or you want to keep it that way, definitely figure out ways to change to passively attract that type more often. It's not something that will be fixed overnight, of course, and it may never happen. You may never attract a certain type of people. There are certain types of people that were never passively attracted to me and never were actively attracted to me, no matter how hard I tried. And it just is what it is. There's only so much you can do, but when you realize that there's only so much you can do, you should be confident in the fact that you've tried your hardest and you're still going to be passively attracting people how you look right now and what you give off right now. That's going to attract people. So always keep that in mind. Now, with that said, you should rethink what is a good date. And what I mean by that is most people consider a good date, I went on this date, it went well, we are going to go on a second date, we're probably going to go on a second date or a third date, or so on and so forth. So, what I consider a good date is either some really basic stuff. One, nobody died. Nobody died on the date. You're alive, you're listening to this, and you're thinking, I went on a date this week. Wasn't that fun, but I'm alive. That was a good date, because you could be dead. It's not that bad, but it was a bad date. Did anyone get hurt? Did this person physically assault you in any way? Did they harm anyone during your date? Probably not that bad. Did they offend you? Did they insult you? That's a bad date. Was it that you had no chemistry and just didn't work out? That's a good date. It really is, because in the end, do you want to date people? You definitely don't want to date people who harm people or you. But you also don't want to date, that's very far end of the spectrum, but you also don't want to date people that you're not into or they're not into you. That's a good date. It's gotten it out of the way. You got a chance to practice your eye contact, your smiling, etc., conversations, meeting strangers, being uncomfortable. You got a chance to practice. And you got 5 of those things out of the way, and maybe more. Maybe you practice some other things. But you had a chance to have conversations, eye contact, and smiling, etc. So, a good date really is no one was harmed. No one was harmed. No one was harmed and no one was insulted. A great date would be if it goes to another date. Things like that. Rethink a good date. Most people don't think a good date ends and no one's interested in seeing the other person. So yeah, rethink what a good date is. Finally, rethink the Pareto principle. You probably have never heard of the Pareto principle. So you probably don't have to rethink it. But the Pareto principle is also called the 80-20 rule, or the law of the vital few. I'm reading from Wikipedia, if you can't tell. And you'll excuse me if I muck up a couple of P words, which I've been doing today. But, it comes from, I believe, a sales philosophy, or it's a common rule of thumb in business. 80% of your sales come from 20% of your clients. You are not selling yourself. I don't assume you're selling yourself. But I would say 80% of your dating success comes from 20% of the dates you will go on. And when I read about the Pareto principle, I actually was thinking, if I look back on all the dates I went on, I can honestly say that probably 20% of them turned into good dates. And great dates, rather. I just told you to rethink good dates. 20% of the dates that I went on turned into great dates where they would turn into a second or third date. And I went on a lot of dates. I was going on like minimum 1 date a week for 4 years. So, it's a lot. It was quite a bit. And I would say that I can remember having a great time with 20% of those dates. So, quick math, 208 first dates, 20% of those. I went on about 40 some odd good dates. And a few of those turned into second dates, and 20% of those turned into second dates, and another 20% turned into third dates. So, yeah, oh my God, that's really sad. I would say and actually the math works out. I think I dated for more than a month about 4 people. Oh man, that's terrible. And by dating, I mean went on more than 3 dates. So I would say I seriously dated 4 people. Wow, that really does work out. See, even I'm rethinking it. I didn't write this part of the blog post. That's why I'm fascinated by my own math, which I'm now going to put into the blog post. Thank you, listeners. So again, practice your smiling eye contact conversation, being uncomfortable, taking rejection, and rethink your self-awareness, your image projection, what are you putting out there, your passive attraction, whose type are you, what is a good date versus a great date, and a bad date is really where only violence occurs. And the Pareto principle, the 80-20, you're only going to get 80% of your success from 20% of who you date. So with that in mind, all those things really should sort of lower, I hate to say it, and I cringe thinking about it, but lower your expectations for dating, but also build up your own self-worth. Your body language, if it's positive, will impact you directly mentally. It's been proven by science and psychology and all that stuff. And I've linked to it a million times. I've run out of links to link to it. And when you rethink who you are and what you are, and you realize that someone finds me attractive, and you might not be coming across them again, 20%. So if we went on 100 dates, you'd only meet 20 people who are attracted to you. And then when you get to the second date, you're going to lose 20%, and so on and so forth. So consider it all, and I really do hope that you build up dating confidence, because it really, being confident in dating, but being confident in general is a great way to go through life. No one ever meets someone and says, I really, really, I'm attracted to him. He has no confidence whatsoever. Being confident is supremely useful. And if nothing else, I hope that you build dating confidence and with that, connect with someone. All right, that's it. And as usual, I would love for you to subscribe. You can subscribe here, or you can subscribe on YouTube. And of course, it is the Tao of Indifference, or the Tao of Indifference, depending on your translation. You can also subscribe to my WordPress and I think my Tumblr. I'm everywhere. I'm also on Twitter at indifferent_D. And that is it for this episode. And good luck out there. Bye.